what herb could I not do without? And immediately I thought of turmeric. Turmeric is beneficial. It's thought to be beneficial for every organ in the body. If you're not using it already, if you're not partnering with it or working with it, like definitely give it a try.
Welcome to the Herbs with Rosalee podcast, a show exploring how herbs heal as medicine, as food, and through connecting with the living world around you. Turmeric might be one of the most popular herbs in the world, and that popularity can make it easy to overlook just how profound this plant really is. In this episode, I'm joined by Mylinda Ogundipe, and our conversation takes turmeric out of the supplement aisle and back into real life. We talk about turmeric as a daily food, as long-term support for inflammation, and how it's been woven into Mylinda's family care in the context of sickle cell disease. It's a beautiful sharing about what happens when you truly partner with a plant over time. If you enjoy this episode, please give it a thumbs up so more plant lovers can find us, and be sure to stay tuned to the very end for your herbal tidbit. Mylinda, I'm so pleased and so honored to have you on the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for inviting me. This is
Absolutely.
so
This
exciting.
is going to be fun. Yeah, this is going to be so much fun. We've got to be in class together a lot, and I have had like a year worth of amazing questions and curiosity coming from you. And yeah, I'm excited to hear more from you in this podcast. And I'm so excited for your chosen herb. But before we get there, I'd love to begin by hearing your plant path and all the things that have brought you here to us today.
Yeah. So as I thought about this question, I'm going to try to do like, I guess, a really high level, because as I thought about it, I was like, oh, okay, I went down a lot of rabbit holes before getting here. But I think the main thing is, I think my path to herbalism started before I actually realized I was on a path to herbalism. My maternal grandmother made what I would now call infusions. She made topical infusions that were kind of like petroleum based. This was back in like the 80s, early 90s, probably before that actually. And they were for like hair growth and aches and pains. So you could put it on your joints, you can put it in your hair. And it wasn't necessarily a family secret, because I think my mother might have the recipe, and I think some of my aunts might have the recipe, but it wasn't something she shared freely. But one day, like out of the blue, she just gave me the recipe, and I like to think she saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. Because again, we didn't think of her as an herbalist. I never heard anybody refer to her as an herbalist. And I don't think we thought of what she was doing as herbalism. Fast forward a few years, I had a really good friend teach me how to make body butters. This was back in the early 2000s. And I really enjoyed it, so much so that for a little while I sold body butters, and I would infuse them with different kinds of essential oils for like aches and pains, kind of harkening back to my grandmother without really realizing it. And then fast forward again, and our daughter was born, and she was born with something called sickle cell disease. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's an inherited red blood cell disorder, and it causes like pain and inflammation in the body. And I think that's kind of where I really started to narrow my focus. It's something uniquely like heartbreaking when you have a child who's like 18 months old, 3 years old, 4 years old on morphine, because she's in so much pain that nothing else can do anything for it. And as a parent, like, you just have to kind of let the medicine do what it can do. And you're just constantly told like there's nothing you can do about it. And for me, I don't accept that. So I was like, well, I'm going to start looking into holistic pain management practices. So I started studying meditation and yoga. In the winter of 2022, I don't know if you remember this, but there was a really big children's Motrin and Tylenol shortage. And what that means for us, because when she's in a pain crisis, we rely on those medications. And what that meant for us is that if we didn't have those at home to try and treat first, that means we had to go straight to the hospital. And so through yoga, I found Ayurveda. And what interested me about Ayurveda is that in India, you have, I believe it's the third highest population of individuals with sickle cell disease. And so I was like, okay, let's look into this and see how they handle, sickle cell disease. And what I discovered is that, it was a lot of herbalism. And so I started kind of veering directly down that path of herbalism. And once I started learning about it and studying it, I realized like I had kind of been on this path. Looking back on it, I had been on this path so closely to herbalism. Like it was this massive thing that had essentially been next to me my whole life without me realizing it. And it was kind of funny because it made me think of the fact that we recently moved to California, to the East Bay area, and we're like 3 miles from the ocean. And we've been here for over a year and we have not been to the ocean yet. I'm kind of embarrassed to say that. But it's not until we're driving somewhere that we look over and we just see the ocean. And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, we're right next to the ocean. And so like looking back on it, it's like, that's what herbalism has been for me. Like there have been all these times in my life, like starting with my grandmother, with my friend, like where I was just so close to herbalism and didn't even realize it. And so in January of 2025, both my daughter and my mother had like severe health issues. My daughter was in the hospital with pneumonia, and in that same week, I got a call saying that my mother had a stroke. And so after that, I was just like, okay, I need to get intentional. I need to be focused, and I really want to like buckle down and understand herbalism and understand herbal remedies and how to help my loved ones in my community, and honestly enter Rooted Medicine Circle, because I think I applied in January of 2025 and I got accepted, and I guess kind of the rest is history. Here we are.
Here we are. Oh, that's such a powerful thing to be called in, through need, through the need of your loved ones, and just that feeling that there must be something else out here, for
Right.
these things. I also think I'm not a super esoteric person, but I see this over and over again, so I can't ignore it. I feel like the plants call to us, and then we don't always listen the first time. Like I see that over and over. It's kind of like, oh, like your maternal grandmother, there was the call, and then the body butters was the call, and and they just keep calling out until finally they like really get our attention. Because I
Right.
see that just part of the story over and over again. Like, oh, I started, but then I got distracted, and then I started, and then I got distracted until finally it's just, the plants just keep coming for us. I think they know there are people out there and they come for us. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely how it felt. It was like they're just gonna keep like tapping me on the shoulder until I say yes. Here I
Mm-hmm.
am.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And for people out there listening, I bet there's people out there who are like, because we have people who are listening to this podcast who are just very starting to be curious about herbs, and then people who are, clinicians and have been herbalists
Mhm.
for decades. And for those of you out there who are just feeling the call, it's real. And they're going to keep calling you. So pay attention. Yeah.
It is.
Hey there. Just a quick note. If you'd like to hear from me in a more personal way, I'd love to have you in my free text community. I send a couple of texts every week, things like behind the scenes updates, herbal thoughts that I'm chewing on, and little sparks of joy I don't always share anywhere else. To join, just text the word ROOT to 1-509-383-8398. And if you ever want to break up, no hard feelings. Just text STOP to the same number and you'll be opted out immediately. My goal is to make it so juicy and so fun that you look forward to getting my texts each week. Okay, now back to the show. Yeah, well, thank you so much for sharing your story. And I'm looking forward to learning more about that and hearing more about Rooted Medicine Circle. But before we go there, I'm so excited to talk about turmeric. Uh, turmeric,
You and me both.
yay, yay. Okay, good, good. Yeah, so turmeric, gosh, it's one of the most popular herbs of our time. Sometimes I feel both that it's like overrated and underrated in a way, in that it's like so popular, it's so studied, everybody knows turmeric. Yet sometimes I think it gets like now I'm almost seeing like that reverberation of like it gets kind of like dismissed because it's so popular. I don't know. Um, right now, I am personally relying hardcore on turmeric. I'm taking like 12 grams a day at
Oh,
least.
wow.
Yeah, for just I'm like quelling some information and it's been amazing. Like I'm just really seeing it like turn things around. So I'm just in this mode of just like I love turmeric so much. So I'm
And
really
you make
excited.
you make your own pills?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. For that,
Hmm.
I have, well, because I can only take that much powder in capsule form. I cannot take it in another form.
Right.
And the cost of, like, I mean, to buy that
Right.
many is insane. So
Yeah.
it's been making
And
capsules.
as you mentioned on the Rooted Medicine website, like supplements aren't super trustworthy all the time. And so
Yeah.
the best way to do it is to do it yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's certainly like good brands out there that I would
Mhm.
trust, but just the price of that, I mean, would really be I don't know like how I would even price that out, but I'm guessing we would be looking at like, I don't know, $10 a day.
A
You know,
day.
yeah, versus like so little to make your own. So we've been watching the Planet Earth series, and it's just like this documentary about the earth narrated by David Attenborough. It's so
Oh,
stunning.
David.
Yeah. And so we've been watching like one of those a night and I just make capsules. And I do struggle sometimes make the capsules because I just want to watch the beautiful images, but I like to do something at the same time. So yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, enough about me and turmeric, Mylinda. Sorry. I just have a lot of joy for turmeric right now. I would love to hear why you chose turmeric to speak about today.
So, if I may, interestingly enough, when I first got the invitation to come on here, um, after the shock, wandering around my kitchen in pure shock and joy and just excitedness, my first thought, interestingly enough, was parsley. And I'll tell you
Ooh.
why. Because, and hopefully we'll get to it later, but when I did my capstone projects, I was looking up information on parsley and I noticed that you didn't have a parsley episode. And I was like, someone needs to do parsley. But as I sat with it and thought about it, there was a period in time where parsley, it was really hard to find in bulk for some reason. I don't know if it was out of season or what was going on, but I couldn't find it, and the little bottles in the store were super expensive. And so I said, well, I'll just go without parsley for a little while. And I was like, well, I shouldn't do that because I felt like I could do without it. And so I thought, like, what herb could I not do without? And immediately I thought of turmeric
Hmm.
because before, I even thought about going down this plant path, and I mean, like years ago, I was buying turmeric by the pound
Hmm.
because we use it in everything every single day. And I thought, like, okay, if I couldn't find turmeric by the pound, would I buy like little expensive bottles? And the answer was yes, because I'm just not going to be without turmeric. What originally brought me to turmeric was not medicinal at all, it was just culinary. We
Hmm.
lived in an area, a kind of, it wasn't remote, but we didn't have a lot of like restaurant diversity. And so we really love Indian food and Jamaican food. And of course, turmeric is featured very heavily in both of those. And so while we were living there, I just started making our own like dishes. And then once I started studying Ayurveda, and then I found out about like all the benefits of turmeric and, the inflammation modulation. Given that sickle cell it's a red blood cell disorder, but it's also an inflammatory disease. A lot of people don't look at it that way, but it causes a lot of inflammation in the body. And so once I realized that, I think I unconsciously decided like this was going to be our family's ally for
Hmm.
life. And
Hmm.
then I just started buying it by the pound.
I love that. I love we have something in common too, Mylinda. I do live very remote. We do not have restaurant diversity either. And we noticed that every time we went to the big city, which is an hour and a half away, it has 100,000 people, we would
Mm.
always go to the Indian restaurant. hands down, every single time. And then one time we were sitting there at the Indian restaurant and my husband says, Indian food's really my favorite food. And he's French and he's very understated and doesn't really have favorite anything. I kind of hold all that energy of the side of the relationship. But I was like, yeah, me too. And I was like, man, we only get it like once or twice a year when we come to the big
Right.
city. And so we changed that. And now almost all of our meals, I will say, are Indian inspired. And
Really?
yeah, and it's just
Oh,
everything he makes now is pretty much an Indian um, recipe and or just inspired by curry and that sort of thing. But we also go
oh,
through a lot
yummy.
of turmeric as a culinary herb too.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I
Yeah.
love that we have that in common.
That's funny because our nearest restaurant our nearest Indian restaurant when we were living where we were living was 2 hours away.
Wow, it's worth the trip, but probably
It
doesn't
was,
happen a lot. Yeah,
it was definitely worth the trip.
yeah. Well, so you started working with turmeric kind of as a family, kind of sounds like as a foundational health. Like we're going to put this into our foods as just this kind of inflammation modulating uh, culinary benefit. And then I imagine things kind of grew from there. But I want to hear the next stage.
You mean like how we use it now? Or,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like how it shows up in your life today.
Yeah, so it's mostly still culinary, but in, I guess, medicinal amounts.
Mm.
Um, so we're plant-based, and so a lot of the stuff we make will have like turmeric for coloring. So again, that's where it kind of started for us from the culinary aspect. But once I realized the medicinal benefits, like I'm from the South, so I make grits.
Mm.
And when I make grits, I actually put a nice dose of turmeric in there to kind of boost the color and give it that medicinal quality. And then I recently came across a recipe by Robin Rose Bennett in one of her books. It's a yogurt. I don't know if you've seen it before, but it's like a turmeric yogurt. And I kind of adjusted it. So I put turmeric, cinnamon, and ginger in it with a little bit of honey. And we just love that. And if you can, tell by the theme, like it's all about like blood moving and things like that. Turmeric in particular is special to us because, again, with sickle cell, you can have a lot of, it affects all of the organs, but the gallbladder is particularly susceptible. Like that can be one of the ones that shows up pretty prominently early, along with the spleen. And so when we learned about how it helps the liver and it helps the gallbladder function and moving bile and all of that, it was just like, of course, like we have to incorporate this into every single thing that we can. And I feel like I feel like in one of the classes, you talked about how like you can't feel the bile moving, but you kind of just have to rely on the fact that like if you're not having those issues, like it feels like it's working. And so we're really fortunate because our daughter hasn't had any gallbladder issues. And
Mm.
again, it's very common to have them, especially around her age. And so I feel like it's really helping like manage her health kind of holistically.
Oh my gosh. See, you've probably heard me say this before, but I always think like if I were a multimillionaire, I would fund so many studies. And I want to know that study, of like people with
Yeah.
sickle cell anemia and how is turmeric helping to support their health? That was
Yes.
actually a question I had for you is that I realize it might be difficult to tell, but just ways in which I don't know, maybe like before and after turmeric for your daughter, if there were things you noticed, or what you've already said, well, it feels like turmeric is a wonderful preventive because these problems that are expected to be problems aren't problems.
I think one of the things that was kind of the most telling to me is that I think Jamaica has a really good quality of life for people with sickle cell, even though the medical system is different. And what you'll see in Jamaica is turmeric in their curry and hibiscus as
Mm.
well. And so with those two, we've been very fortunate in that she hasn't had a pain crisis since the summer of 2023. And that's pretty big because at one point she was having them probably like 4 times a year, being hospitalized and all of that. And so once we kind of shifted to kind of incorporating these more holistic approaches, like we saw a market difference. Like it was almost immediate.
That's amazing, Mylinda. And that just, oh man, just makes me think how many people out there are dealing with this who could really use this information because I mean that's just huge. I mean it's really huge. And then I could say that about every single disease pathology out there.
Yeah.
I do wonder
Mhm.
like what do people do without herbs? I honestly think about that all the time. I just had a neighbor call me yesterday and she is a bit older and she was having lots of a croupy cough, she said, and she was having trouble breathing. She wasn't sleeping at night and she was really struggling. She's like, do you have anything? And so I made her up some tea and I gave her some garlic oil to put on her feet. And today she
Mm.
called me, so I slept 13 hours last night and my cough is so much better. And it was just one of those moments again of just like, what do people do without herbs? I
Suffer
just don't know
unnecessarily. Yeah.
necessarily. And this I've never worked with anyone with sickle cell before, and so this is very eye-opening to me and just feels very hopeful and inspiring. Um, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, the thing that really pulled me into herbalism and just deciding like, okay, I need to do this is that in a lot of the herbal communities that I was kind of jumping around in, like I would ask that specifically, like, hey, have you ever worked with someone with sickle cell? And it's interesting because it's the most common inherited blood disorder in the United States. But I didn't have anybody to kind of like guide me. Everyone was like, oh, well, that's interesting. We should have some information about it. Like, I'll work with you on it. And for various reasons, it didn't really happen. And so at a point, I just decided, like, okay, I need to be the herbalist that I need. And
Mm, yeah.
that's how this came about.
Mm. Well, thank you, because I know you're not only helping your own family and your daughter, but you're going to be a resource for many, which is obviously very important.
Yeah, that's
Um,
definitely.
yeah. With turmeric, maybe you've already answered this, but is there anything that has surprised you about turmeric as you've been working with this lovely plant?
So I talk a lot about my daughter, but because it's our collective ally, one thing that did surprise me, and it probably shouldn't, because I read that in healing spices, I think it says that turmeric is beneficial. It's thought to be beneficial for every organ in the body. Midway through my cycle, I usually have like really bad ovulation pain and cramps and digestive discomfort. And so one night, like I couldn't sleep, and I was just like, okay, let's try a golden milk and let's put some nutmeg in it because I need to sleep. And
Nice.
the relief was almost instantaneous. And so
Mm,
like ever since then, I kind of started partnering with turmeric for my cycle, and I feel like it's evened out and kind of become a lot more pleasant. I think, because of turmeric's effect on the liver, but also because it has an affinity for the reproductive system, which you don't hear a lot about.
hmm. Yeah, that's the thing. That's when I say like it's sometimes be underrated because there is something out with turmeric. Like, what doesn't turmeric do? Um,
Right.
I
Right.
my mentor, Carter Singh Khalsa, he had a great quote. It was something like, "Turmeric is a medicine cabinet in a curry bowl," which is just so true,
I
though. Like,
believe
what
it.
doesn't it
Yeah.
do? Yeah, yeah. Um, I love that you mentioned golden milk too. I was just sipping on some golden milk yesterday and just thinking, like, oh my gosh, this is so creamy, so delicious, so yummy. And again, it's kind of like the medicine cabinet in a delicious beverage.
The way that your recipe, like kind of sauteing the spices in the oil
Mhm,
first, that
mhm,
is a game changer. Like that's not
mhm,
the way I was taught to make it. And so like starting to do it that way, it just infuses so much better, I think. And you
hmm.
kind of get that because it creates a more aromatic experience as well.
Yeah.
And like you said, it makes it so creamy.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that like, those spices need the heat to activate
Hmm.
them. Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
noticed a big difference too. And speaking of KP, my mentor, I'm pretty sure I learned that from him. It's been a while now. Like,
Mm.
I always love to give credit where credit's due. but sometimes when it's been a couple decades, I'm like, it's hard to always remember, but I'm pretty sure I learned that from KP. So
Right.
yeah, I should just say anything I've ever learned about turmeric comes from KP. I'll just take a blanket statement on that one. All right, so you've talked about working with it as a culinary, and we're going to talk about your recipe in just a second. I've talked about golden milk. I'm just curious, do you ever work with it as a tincture?
I haven't yet.
I haven't either, for the record. I'm kind of not interested, but I thought I would ask. Just
I'm actually interested in. I'm actually interested in working with it as an oil. Have you worked with it as an oil?
No, not like.
Yeah.
I mean, the first thing I think of is like an external oil.
Mm-hmm.
Because isn't it, I don't know. I just feel like it'll get everything orange.
It will.
Yeah, maybe that doesn't matter.
It definitely will. But yeah, we're okay with that. I think I'm gonna. That's been a thought that I've had for a while. Is like I wanna, and I may mix it with something else. Rosemary had an email go out a little while ago where she mentioned a calendula oil where she put turmeric in it. I guess for the color and stuff. And so I was like, what about a calendula and turmeric, just like infused?
Yeah, that sounds nice.
So yeah, I may have to try that.
My other favorite way to work with turmeric is as a juice. Do you ever work with it as a juice, like a fresh juice?
So I haven't. I want to, because I've seen people juice ginger and turmeric. The only time I work with turmeric fresh is when I'm making fire cider. And so I'll chop up the root and put it in there.
Yeah, I bought a juicer just for turmeric. Yeah. But and I did it for that one recipe. It's the only thing I do, but it's fresh turmeric, fresh ginger, and apple.
Yes.
Kind of like tones it down a little bit. But there's just something that's just so like vibratory, just like woo, with the fresh turmeric. That's fun. So yeah, when the turmeric, I live again remotely, so where it's not like I live in Hawaii, like the fresh turmeric is just like so bountiful and beautiful all the time. But when we get it in fresh and it looks really good, I'm like, okay, it's turmeric juice time.
I was just gonna ask, is that something you do like in the summer times?
My favorite thing is actually at the onset of a cold or a flu. There's something about it now. I just absolutely crave it. So if I like feel something coming on, it's like and I will freeze it in the freezer too, so I can like have it available as needed. But yeah, I love it. It's just like so spicy, and yeah, just feels nice. But I bet I could see it as like you could dilute it a bit, like put it in, like juice it up, put it in sparkling water, and like have it as a nice summer beverage. You just gave me that idea, Mylinda. Okay. All right.
Yes, I'm definitely gonna have to try that now because we have a lot of fresh turmeric at the store. I'll have to look at it because you made a good point. Like if it looks good, so though it's there, I'll have to make sure it looks good before I get it.
Yeah, and here's how this was my like slippery slope. I went to the thrift store and I got a juicer for $1 at our like local senior thrift store, and that like was like the entryway in because I'm like, oh, another appliance and another thing, and got it and used it, and it worked like you would expect a $1 juicer to work. Right. I mean, probably knew it was like a $20 juicer or something, but it just like wasn't really fabulous. And so then, I did, and I used that for quite a while, but there was so much like juice left in the pulp that I was like, oh, it's just not like, I feel like I wasn't getting my money's worth out of the turmeric and the ginger and everything because it was still so like moist, So I was like wasting the plant because it was just like not like really juicing it very well. So then
do you reuse the pulp at all?
I did not think I did that. But now I got a juicer that's like, it's like dry, it goes through. It's just like, it works a little better. So anyway, that's just like it's nice to like try the thrift store version, see if you're into it. Right, if necessary.
Yeah, I'll definitely.
Or, you might find a good one at the thrift store though. Yeah. All right, so we covered that. Let's talk about your recipe because this looks absolutely delicious. I'm envisioning it over my sweet potato fries. That's what I'm thinking.
Yes.
But, it's the creamy golden sauce, and walk us through it.
Yeah, so I love it so much because I feel like it's the perfect little inflammation modulating delivery system because it has
like music to my ears, Mylinda.
I love that. It has the turmeric, it has the ginger, and then the sunflower seeds or hemp seeds as the base, and then black pepper, of course, to boost absorption, and lemon juice, and I think I might have apple cider vinegar and honey. And so the interesting thing is my daughter has a lot of allergies. One of them, which is her allergist said it's a rare allergy, but I don't think it necessarily is, but it's to mustard. And so this kind of gives you kind of like a mustard, like reminiscent kind of thing. And the way that we use it is on black-eyed pea fritters. And it's so good.
Okay, personal question. What is a black-eyed pea fritter?
So you take black-eyed peas, cook black-eyed peas.
Those are my favorite, just FYI. These are
my
favorite.
They really?
Oh
then you're going to love this. You're going to love this.
My family's from Texas, so this is like this is ultimate comfort food. Yeah.
My family's from Texas.
Oh.
Look at us.
Yeah.
So much in common. But yeah, so you take the black-eyed peas, you mash them up, mix flour in there. Like I said, we're plant-based, so we don't do egg, but I guess you could probably put an egg in there. And then we do kind of like Italian seasonings. And then you just put it in the pan and fry it. Make a little cake, put it in the pan, fry it. And not really fry it, but kind of saute it, brown it on both sides, like a normal fritter. And put the sauce on it, and you're gonna love it. You're welcome in advance.
Oh my gosh, this is gonna be amazing. Yeah, this is going to air after New Year's, but I host New Year's for our dear friends and farmers, and so of course for New Year's we have black-eyed peas. I always make a big pot of the black-eyed peas, but now I think I'm going to like double up. Like we're going to have black-eyed pea soup, and they're going to have the fritters to dunk in it, and I'm going to be their favorite person with the creamy golden sauce. This is going to be amazing.
Yes.
I will give you credit as I'm receiving all of the praise. Yeah.
Yes, I think you'll really like it, and it's salt and pepper to taste. Okay. But yeah, it's delicious. We just slather it on there. Like, it's good.
Nice.
And the thing about it is that it will thicken over time. So if you make it like a day in advance, if you think you're going to use the whole thing, you can put a little water in it to loosen it up. I like to make it the day of, just so that it's the consistency that I like it to be. Because once you add water, if you don't use it all up, it's going to go bad quicker.
I see, yeah. What I love about this is you could make it up and just put it on everything.
Yes, absolutely. You said sweet potatoes, and that's so funny because I haven't tried it on sweet potatoes, but this morning I was thinking it would probably be really good on a grain bowl or a sweet potato bowl. So sweet potato fries, yes.
Yeah, I'm kind of obsessed with sweet potato fries right now. And that's actually what we're having for dinner. So
Ooh, yummy.
That was very much on my mind. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing this recipe with us, Mylinda. And for the listeners and watchers out there, we love to hear it when you make these recipes and hear how yummy they are, how your family enjoyed them. So please leave us a comment and let us know how that goes. And the fun thing about that is when we hear from people about them making the recipe, we often inspire other people to make the recipe. And I have found that the best way to enjoy herbs and get the benefits of herbs is to actually take them and not just listen about them. So that's just a hot tip for you right there. Yeah, which is why we always feature the recipes to give people fun and practical ways to work with these plants. Hey, it's Rosalee. You know, creating this podcast has been one of the most rewarding parts of my herbal work. And if you found something meaningful here, whether it's a new perspective, a favorite recipe, or just a sense of calm, I want to let you know there's a good way to go even deeper. It's called the Podcast Circle. Inside, you'll get access to live classes taught by some of my favorite herbal teachers, behind-the-scenes updates, and a beautiful library of herbal resources that we've gathered over the years. But more than that, it's a space to connect with fellow plant lovers who care about the same things you do. And truly, your membership helps make this podcast possible. It's how we keep the episodes coming and the herbal goodness flowing. So if you're ready to be part of something more, something rooted in connection, head over to herbalpodcastcircle.com. I'd love to see you there. Well, before we move on, is there anything that you would like to share with turmeric that we haven't covered yet?
like you said, I think because it's so ubiquitous that people don't appreciate it. Like it's just like everywhere. And so it's like you said, it's kind of taken for granted. So the only thing I would say is like, if you're not using it already, if you're not partnering with it or working with it, like definitely give it a try because it's so amazing. And for us, again, it's culinary, but it's also medicinal. And it just makes everything taste so much better. We put it in, like, anytime I make rice, it's the base for, I make a veggie broth powder. It's the base
Mm.
for the veggie broth powder. I make like a curried cauliflower, roasted cauliflower. So it's mostly turmeric and paprika. And just like start putting it on everything.
I feel like and like you said, like you'll know you're doing things right when you are buying it a pound at a time. Like
Yeah,
that's a great amount of turmeric to use.
it is.
Yeah, it's lovely. Well, thank you for sharing so much of your love of turmeric. I'm feeling I was already a turmeric fan, and now I'm like, how much more could we put into our meals? And very excited about black eyed peas fritters too. So that's gonna be fun.
Yes, yes, yes. I can send you a recipe if you want.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. Yeah, so we've talked about turmeric, we talked about your plant path, and you mentioned rooted medicine circle being an important part of that, which is of course a big honor. And I'd love to talk more about that. This will be airing the last week of enrollment for Rooted Medicine Circle in 2026. And
Yay!
yeah, it is a fun time. It's always fun to see who's joining us for the year. And yeah, I'm curious what you maybe have already answered this a bit, but like what inspired you to join Rooted Medicine Circle? I know the plants were calling you from here and there, and then Rooted Medicine Circle came up, and yeah, what was it that made you feel like, oh, this is the thing that I want or need at at this point?
As we were kind of talking about it before, I think you all do a excellent job of kind of um, like organizing and like marketing yourselves. The Rooted Medicine Circle website actually does an excellent job of kind of understanding the lay of the land of what herbalists, aspiring herbalists, current herbalists, seasoned herbalists are going through, especially at this point in time. We're in a unique time where there's so much information on the internet. And now with like AI, there's so much not great information on the internet. And so I think what kind of drew me to Rooted Medicine Circle, number one was you and Emily. I actually got Wild Remedies in January of 2024. Like
Oh, cool.
I think that was the first time I heard of both of you. And it was so funny, kind of like, with the plants, tapping me on the shoulder. Like from there, it was always like, Rosalee, Rosalee, Rosalee. And then when I was in other herbal programs and we started talking about energetics, like, of course, you're a rock star, so you came up all the time. And so I was like, okay, well, let me go see what she's about. And so when I found the website and it just talked about like this structured, seasonally aligned program that, helps you become a better herbalist and teaches you how to work with plants and um, basically develop a deeper connection with the earth. I think that was what really brought it, like really endeared me to the program. And if I could go back to the ocean metaphor, I think with herbalism, depending on how and where and when you decide to just dive into it, it can be like really chaotic and disorienting. And I think Rooted Medicine Circle kind of provided a lifeline and kind of calm the waters so that you can kind of understand the lay of the land. Like,
Mm.
what is it that I'm doing and what is it that I want to do? And kind of getting a better understanding of how we fit into like everything and how we're all connected.
Oh, I love that. That's
Yeah.
yeah, it feels so good to hear like, oh, what we're trying to do is what we're is what's happening.
Yes.
I don't know if you've heard this, Mylinda, but how Rooted Medicine Circle came about was because we wrote Wild Remedies, and then the people who bought Wild Remedies, we asked them, "What do you want from us next?" And they said a medicine making course. And Emily Hahn, and I both said, "No, thank you." It was just like not a lot of interest to us. But then we both kept thinking about it, and we both kept coming, like bringing it back to the table. And then this idea emerged that it wasn't simply a medicine making class, but also like a connection class. And how do we infuse the connections that we have to the plants through the medicine making, through the seasons, and also giving like the why behind it? Because, like you said, there's so much information out here these days. And then I don't know, if we don't know the why behind the medicines we're making, it's hard to make great, potent medicines. And also, we eventually found our passion for it. And I know Emily and I both, this is just something that we love so much. So yeah, it's nice to hear how that landed.
Oh
Um,
yeah, it's definitely exactly, I imagine it's exactly landing the way that you all envisioned it. Because with Wild Remedies, I really enjoyed, like, there's like parts where you can do like journal entries and things like that, where you do reflections. And the same thing exists in Rooted Medicine Circle. So now that you say that, I'm like, of course, why didn't I realize that before? That it's kind of just like an extension and an expansion.
yeah. Oh, I like that extension and expansion. At its heart, Rooted Medicine Circle is a medicine making course. And I'm curious, is there a particular medicine that sticks out for you that you made this past year?
Well, aside from all of them, my favorite was hydrosols. Like,
Ooh, love
I
hydro.
loved, I love the idea that I could make a hydrosol from stuff that we already just had in the house.
Hmm.
Um, I literally like, as I was making it, I like swilled as the little container inside the pot was filling up. I'm like, yes, it's working. And so when it was done, we talked about this in class. It wasn't super fragrant, and so it was just like, but we workshop during the Q&A. You all workshop with me ways to harvest so that it would be, more fragrant. And so what I ended up doing with it was actually using it to make a shampoo. So it was
Hmm.
the base of a shampoo that I would make later. Um, so I would say hands down hydrosol, but second to hydrosol was the syrups.
Mhm.
And ginger syrup is something that we kind of keep on hand in the house. And we kind of just, mostly we make ginger ale with it, but also like if we make a tea, we'll put a little ginger syrup in it instead of honey.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Hmm. It's delicious.
Well, those are two fun medicines. I love that you chose hydrosols too, as the first one. There's something just so magical about hydrosol. It's, like you said, it's so easy to get super excited about it. And yeah, and like cucumber hydrosol is one of my favorite hydrosols. So I love that it's just super accessible too. Like you could, make some, very, I don't know, highfalutin kind of hydrosol from these like special plants from your garden. You can also like go get some mint or some cucumber from the store or lemons, and make hydrosols out of that.
Oh wow, cucumber hydrosol. Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
that
it's
sounds so
so refreshing.
refreshing.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
refreshing in summertime. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, my favorite hydrosol is Tulsi
Oh, me
because,
too.
like, gosh, it just smells so good. I keep a
Mhm.
Tulsi plant by the front door.
Aw.
And so whenever I'm going or coming, I kind of just tap it a little bit so that it
Mhm.
gives me some of that fragrance.
Oh, it's
But
lovely.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that's probably one
delicious.
of my most, well, that neroli, tulsi, rose. But yeah,
Mm,
yeah, all of them so
yeah,
lovely.
yeah.
Well, in Rooted Medicine Circle, as you know, we have 5 modules, 5 different themes. There's awareness, reciprocity, interdependence, um, community, and self care. And I was just wondering if there was one that popped out for you that you meant a lot to you, or any stories you have to tell about how the themes kind of showed up for you.
Yeah. So I would say awareness, like we were talking about, I think at various points the intentionality behind the course becomes so clear. Because with awareness being the first one, it becomes the framework through which you see the rest of the modules. Um, and so while I loved awareness, later when we got to self-care, that one was super important to me because at the time that we were doing it, my husband was out of the country. Um, and so I was solo parenting my daughter, and I'm still very hands-on with taking care of my mother while she recovers from her stroke. And so it just gave me the opportunity to like tune in and using awareness to see, okay, where am I not like taking care of myself, and how can I take care of myself a little bit better? Because leading up to that, there's interdependence and reciprocity and things like that. And, it's so important to develop that. But you go back to that idea of you can't pour from an empty cup. And so understanding how important it is to take care of yourself and understanding how easy it is to say that versus do it. I think that module really helped me kind of hone, in on that idea of, okay, these are little things that I can do to take care of myself a little bit better while I take care of everyone around me.
I'm so glad that resonated with you. Yeah, the world asks so much from us right now. And like you
Yes,
said, can't pour from an empty cup. So I'm a big believer in the self-care for all of us. And I feel like even now there can be kind of a stigma against that, or, this feeling of selfishness around it. And I think the more we bust that open and practice radical self-care and self-love is a powerful thing for all of us. So that then ripples out to benefit our friends and family as well.
definitely. And I think I really like that community came after self-care, because like you're saying, it ripples out.
Mm-hmm.
During the community module, what I really focused in on was my daughter created this little, I call it a fairy garden, because she decided to like put all these seeds together, like really close in a really small space. And I'm just like, that's not going to work. But she was like, I'm going to do it. And so I was like, okay. And what ended up happening, it was interesting enough, black-eyed peas, sweet potato, sunflower seeds, and I think a couple of other things. And what ended up happening is that she just got these tiny little plants of everything. Like everything grew, and it was just a little miniature version of it. And it just, to me, it was kind of like a microcosm of the idea of community, wherein we can all like share resources, and we may not like grow like as big as the biggest sunflower seed or whatever, or sunflower plant, but we can all have enough to create. And so when she got these like little black-eyed pea pods, I was just like, really? You got seeds. So
Wow.
it was a really nice reminder that like community comes in different forms, and resource sharing is so important.
Beautifully said, Mylinda. Well, let's go from there to your capstone project then. So you chose to do the certificate path, which means that every module you submit your questions and responses, or your responses to our questions through each time. And then through the whole year, there's this capstone project that's looming. And you kind of did two capstone projects. And so I'd love to hear about them. Like, what were they? What was it like to create them? And yeah, we'll dive in more. But yeah, let's hear about them.
Yeah, so like you said, I'm kind of an overachiever, but I'm also indecisive.
I see.
So I was just like, yeah, let me do these two completely different capstone projects. And it's so funny when I submitted it to Emily, she was like, I see you're doing two. Now feel free to just do one. And I thought about that. I was like, okay, I have this like emergency exit. Like, okay, if I really need to, as I get closer to the end, if I feel like I can't pull it off, I can just submit one, and that's fine. But yeah, I ended up doing two. The first one was I ended up calling it a spectacular study of wildflowers. And it was all about dandelion. And that kind of came about because I was listening to your podcast with Bridget, I believe, dandelion medicine. And so I read that book and loved it. And then we went to the library and checked out every book that they had on dandelion. And it's a lot.
Wow.
The interesting thing is, because actually when I first started, because I'm very ambitious, when I first started, I was going to do 5 different plants for that.
Oh, okay.
Um,
See
and I
you.
had so this was actually me scaling it back.
Okay.
Um, and so I wanted to do like plantain and nettle and a couple of others. And interestingly enough, even though dandelion is viewed as like this invasive weed, there's so much, like so many children's books about it and how amazing it is, and making wishes on dandelions and things like that. But there's not a lot of children's books, at least at our library, about many other plants. So then I was like, well, maybe I could do a children's book. And then I was like, no, no, no. Okay, come on, scale it back. Like, that's enough. So the dandelion one is an activity book that has like crossword puzzles, word searches, cryptograms, things like that.
Can we talk about the
Sickle.
illustrations real quick on the
Yeah.
dandelion? Because that's
Oh,
pretty
yes.
fun. Because so for my experience, as I'm reading this, I read the story about the capstone before I see the capstone. And so your story about it was, oh, a friend offered to do some illustrations for me. And then I
Yeah.
saw the illustrations and I was like, wow. Anyway, I'll let you tell the story.
Yeah, so she's going to be listening to this. So thank you, Demetria. Um, so, yeah, so we're out here in the Bay Area, and we just happen to have like really talented friends. And so we're having a play date with my daughter and her granddaughter. And I'm printing my paper so that I can kind of edit and things like that, because I like editing on the page. And she sees it and she's like, "Oh, that looks interesting," because she had been doing completely unrelated. She had been kind of doing some dandelion illustrations of her own, and she was like, "Oh, can I take a look at that? Like maybe I'll add some images to it for you." And what what I turned in is her maybe adding some
Yeah.
images. Like they're just
It's really incredible.
absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
So she does a lot of like graphic, kind of like graphic novel type, where it's like panels. So like you have characters and things like that. And so I think we ended up with one of a page of a cartoon illustration, kind of. I don't want to say cartoon because that, to me, that doesn't like,
Yeah.
it doesn't do it justice. So it's just this beautiful page of artwork that has our little ones playing with dandelions in it. So
Yeah, it's
yeah,
so lovely. And I love your reflection too, of just how your capstone became in itself kind of a community project because of Dimitri's work. And yeah, it was really lovely.
yeah, it's one of those things where it's just like you don't you don't really recognize the amazingness of your community until something like that happens, and it's just like, oh, really? Like this, you want to help me like with this project, and like just for fun. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, it was beautiful. All right,
Yeah.
now I'll let you talk about your second capstone project.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So because sickle cell advocacy is at the heart of everything that I do, um, the second one was kitchen herbalism for sickle cell support. And it was kind of like the perspective was from the perspective of a caregiver, since that's what I am. Because in the sickle cell community, you have parents who have sickle cell with kids who don't necessarily have sickle cell, or parents that do, have kids that do have sickle cell. But for our particular case, we don't have sickle cell. We carry the trait, but our daughter has sickle cell disease. And so it was kind of meant to show, that you don't need all these fancy supplements. Um, because when I had, read about how some of these supplements aren't necessarily putting what they say they're putting in there, I got really concerned because, our child is so young, and it's like, okay, what they're saying is in there isn't in there, and I've just been giving her this, as opposed to, if we're looking at it from a culinary perspective and a kitchen herbalism perspective, I know exactly what's going into her body because I'm putting it in there. And so, again, being very ambitious, I think I had gotten up to like 21 different herbs I was going to put in that. and I finally just parsed it down to 8. And it ended up, I think, being like 50 something pages just with the 8. And so, again, parsley is in there, ginger, turmeric, and things like that. I do plan to do another one because I do want to have this available for people in the sickle cell community that is not necessarily culinary, but more so like apothecary. And so the reason why I focused on kitchen herbalism in this one was because when I first started, I was introduced to all these kind of herbs that aren't really local. So you kind of had to, find someone who carried them, and you kind of had to make sure they were a trustworthy source and things like that. But with this, you can just go to I made sure that everything that was in there was something that you could get from the grocery store, because that was really important to me. I didn't want people to feel like it was inaccessible. Like, oh, I've got to find, I don't want to say any particular one because it's like, that's local for somebody, but there are certain ones that are just not local for everyone. And these are kind of local for most people. So I really like the idea of that.
Yeah, it's a wonderful resource, Mylinda, and I can hear like you're just getting started. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I know there are folks out there who are probably wondering, or they want to see your capstone projects. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have links in the show notes for more information on about how folks can check those out. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Perfect. Yes.
Yeah. I forgot to say this earlier too, but as always, we also have the beautifully illustrated recipe card available as well. So check out the show notes there too.
Yeah.
All right, Mylinda, I'm curious. What would you say to someone who's feeling curious about Rooted Medicine Circle, or maybe like on the fence, or like, should I do it? Should I not do it? What would you tell them? Please say, convincing things that they should do it. I'm just kidding. No pressure. No pressure. You say what you want to say.
Well, my first question is like, how can you be on the fence? Like, you have Rosalee, you have Emily, like, fence. Karen, Emily. Yeah, I think I can't think of a single person who would not benefit from Rooted Medicine Circle. Like I said, whether you're seasoned, whether you're new, whether you've been doing it for a while, there's so much information and so much material that there's something for everybody. And I can't imagine that even if you've been doing this for a long time, that there's not something that you would get from it that you didn't know before. And also the idea that, I think it's a saying, like, if you ask 1,000 different herbalists how to make something, you'll get 1,000 different answers. And so even if you already know how to make something, like, chances are you probably aren't making it like this. And so it just gives you an additional approach to these kind of common herbal remedies.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, and occasionally Emily and I disagree on how to make something, so we even share a couple
right.
different approaches because, like you said, 1,000 different ways. Yeah. So,
and that was always so nice to see you all, like, okay, like Emily does it like this, and Rosalee does it like this, and then you can kind of figure out like where you fall. Like, maybe you do it more like Emily, maybe you do it more like Rosalee, and I mean, it's nice to see like how you can kind of sometimes even blend those two together.
Yeah, we do have a fun time showing this. Yeah, like you said, the myriad of ways. So I've had you in a couple of classes. You've been a star student. You show up with like curiosity, and it was just like always, you were there so often. I don't know, I got used to you being there, and it was so lovely. And so there's some people who are watching this right now who are like, oh, I'm actually in, like, I'm going to be in Rooted Medicine Circle this year. So as a star student, I'm wondering, if you have any advice for somebody who's just starting Rooted Medicine Circle.
Yeah, so I would say, as much as possible, try to fully immerse yourself in the program. Like you said, I did the certificate path because I don't necessarily like self-paced courses. And I feel like had I not done the certificate path, it would have turned into a self-paced course and I would have let life get in the way and I wouldn't have been able to finish in the amount of time that I wanted to finish. And so I feel like if you're starting, like, as much as possible, attend live. The recordings are great. It's amazing that you have access to the recordings, but there's so much magic that happens when you're in the room and you're in the community and you're able to like ask questions and get your questions answered in real time. And you can follow up like, okay, well, that's the answer, but now I have a little bit, that actually opens up another question that I have. That's really nice. And that actually happens even if you're not in the live Q&As. What I will say is that Emily is absolutely amazing doing the feedback. I would like, I have this tendency for odd things to happen. So like maybe I'll make, a dandelion root tincture and it has like a bunch of inulin in it. And it's like, I've never seen this before. And so I can send you all a picture and I can put it in with my module. And, Emily can respond like, oh, no, that's fine. That looks fine. And so I'm like, okay, I feel better now. Or if I have questions about anything along the process, I can kind of put it in my module. And, she would always give personalized, detailed feedback. And she would also ask me clarifying questions if I had a question that maybe needed a little bit more of an in-depth answer. And so you don't think that if you don't attend live that you won't get that personalized response and feedback. You will. And like I said, it's something magic about being just in the community with everyone. Also, I would say to maybe take it slow. There's so much information. The thing that I really enjoyed when the class first opened up was the moon class. And we never really, we talked about the moon all throughout, but we never really went into that. So I really loved that there was this like its own section where you kind of just got to hear Rosalee telling you about the moon. But there's that, there are recipes, there's gardening, creating your own herbal garden, there's wild crafting, like there's just so much that's in the course, but kind of outside of the actual, Rooted Medicine Circle modules and the things that you're reading in the notebook and all of that. And so I would say be ready to return as much as you need to and just soak it all up and take your time soaking it up because it's there and it's wonderful information.
Oh, Mylinda, thank you so much. So like Emily and I have just poured our heart into this. And so it's like just so lovely to hear that, like, what we've done is being like, just to hear it reflected back, I guess. And I love that you mentioned just like the feedback and Emily is so incredible and like what she does with the module reviews and everything. And I do think that's one of the most valuable parts of Rooted Medicine Circle is just like, it's not a do-it-yourself course.
Right.
I mean, you actually do have to make the medicines yourself, but we're there
Right.
with you every step of the way. And we always want people to feel super supported and lifted up. And and so that the end result is confidence, like that's what we're going for.
Yeah, absolutely. I walked away feeling like you all wanted me to understand and succeed as an herbalist. And I feel like anybody who takes the course would absolutely walk away with the same feeling because it's not one of those situations, like you said, where you're kind of just on your own. If you want to do the medicine making live during the demos with you all, you can. And if you run into an issue, like you can ask questions in real time while you're doing it, while we're doing it. And that's something that I had actually never seen before. And I loved it.
Oh, yeah. Well, it was such a pleasure to have you there, as I've said before.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been lovely. Well, to close up, Mylinda, You had shared some really interesting plantain stories, and I am a big plantain fan. It's in the logo. It's in the Herbs with Rosalee logo. It's plantain in there, because this plant is a wower, and I feel like, I've watched so many people whose like trajectory of herbalism was shifted because of plantain,
Yeah.
including my own. And so I would love it if you'd, be willing to share those plantain stories with us that we can be wowed.
Definitely. So the first one was like a lemony snicket series of unfortunate events that led to my daughter having a thigh full of splinters. We were somewhere on a wooden bench, and like this was the first time she's ever gotten a splinter. And so obviously she too is an overachiever because she got a bunch of them at one time. Um, and so we were in the car, and so I pulled as many as I could out in the car. And then we got home, I got the splinters and pulled more out. But then there was just one area where she was just like, I feel like something is still in there. And where did my mind go? I'm like, plantain, it draws things out. And so I made a dried plantain infusion essentially. And it was so this part I feel like was important because the module came out on a Wednesday where we talked about compresses and fomentations and things like that. It came out on a Wednesday. She got the splinters on a Thursday. So the very
Oh,
next day after it came out. And so I had already been reading about it. And so it was just such great timing or bad timing. I don't know.
okay. Way to stay up with class materials, Mylinda. Like right on it.
I was. But yeah, so I made the infusion and I got cheesecloth and at first I kind of did like a dried poultice where I just kind of put all the herbs and the cheesecloth and just put it on there. And then after a while, it just kind of created a compress and just laid the soaked cheesecloth on her leg. And the swelling went down pretty significantly. But then the next day, it was still going down, but it was still kind of red. And again, because she has sickle cell, we have to be like very careful about infections and things like that because people with sickle cell have a compromised immune system. And so we decided, okay, it's still a little red, still a little raised, so we're going to take her to urgent care. And so we went to urgent care, and the doctor said, okay, there's an infection brewing, and you just kind of have to let it run. Like you just have to let it become infected, and then you'll go see the dermatologist, and the dermatologist will take care of it after it's infected. And to me, I was just like, I don't want to let it get infected. So, so that night we came back home and plantain compresses like for days. So like for 2 days in a row, we just did like the plantain compresses. And 2 days in, the swelling had gone down. To me, there was no sign of infection. It was still a little raised, so we still kind of kept doing it. And a week later, we got into a dermatologist because they kind of did a like a rushed like referral. And by the time we got to see the dermatologist said, no, there's no infection and there's nothing in there. Like, it's fine. Like, she's good. And so we were like, yes, plantain. And so I became Mama Witch after that. Like, oh, where's your witch juice? Like, put it on there. And so 2 weeks later, the other story, 2 weeks later, again, my overachieving child, got like a cut or something on her finger. And I assumed it was just like a paper cut or something like that. But like days later, it was swollen and it had a little yellow under the surface, kind of the way that the urgent care doctor had described what, a full blown infection would look like, was kind of what looked like was developing here. And so again, we were like, okay, well, if it continues to look bad, we'll take her to urgent care again. But first plantain. And so this time we made a plantain soak. And so just had a little container, made an infusion, and just had her put her finger in it. And I want to say like the next day, the swelling had gone down because it was pretty pronounced swelling. The next day, the swelling had gone down, and 2 days later, it popped. And it was just gone,
Wow.
like it had never existed.
Wow.
And so after that, I was just like, plantain for everything.
Plantain for everything. One thing that I loved about when I read these stories too, Mylinda, is that you're using dried plantain, which there was a time in my herbal path that I would have been like, oh, you can't use dried plantain. But I have since learned that that is not the case. But I loved reading that about this because it's, plantain is so readily available to most people fresh for a portion of the year at least, but dried, like to have that on hand and have this powerful medicine that can prevent infections, treat infections, prevent, yeah, that's just amazing. I love plantain.
It absolutely is. And to your point, I think a big thing about herbalism to me is not only trusting yourself with the plants, but trusting the plants themselves. And so, I think everyone is going to kind of have a different experience, especially with live plants. And so when I started with Rooted Medicine Circle, I got a series of plants, and one of them was nettles. And I was a little afraid of nettles because everyone was like, oh, you're going to get stung. Like, you have to wear gloves. You have to be very careful. You're just, it's just going to sting you. And the funny thing was, I don't really like gardening with gloves, so I never really wore gloves. But the funny thing was, like, I would work with nettle, and if I was very like gentle and, oh, I'm just gonna prune like this one, I would get stung every single time. But if I just went in there and went for it, I never got stung. And I feel like that was nettles telling me, like, be assertive, like, go for it. Because I don't tend to be a very assertive person. And so it's interesting to like have the plants kind of speak to you and kind of help bring things out of you that you didn't really think about. So yeah, I think
that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
This is why I love being an herbalist too, like no shade on like the functional medicine folks, whatever. They have a lot to offer as well. But when they talk about herbs, they're like, and not that I don't talk about studies too, but they'll say like, oh, an ethanol extract of nettles has been shown to reduce A1C levels in diabetic patients. Like, that's the discussion they're having. I love that this is the discussion we're having. Like, nettle teaches you to be assertive. That's a lesson that I need. That's because that's what comes out of relationship with the plants. They aren't just, something that we're using. There's something that we're forming a relationship with. And that your stories just beautifully illustrate that.
Thank you. And Rooted Medicine Circle, just to, circle back to that one more time, like Rooted Medicine Circle really teaches you how to develop a relationship with the plants. We didn't get to talk about it, but that idea of sit spots where you can kind of just sit during each module and kind of observe different plants and the plants in that environment, or even the just the life in that environment, whether it's bugs or whatever. I think Rooted Medicine Circle does a great job of teaching you how to form relationships with the plant and the earth in general.
It's just been such a pleasure to have you in class. It's been such a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Thanks again so much for saying yes and for sharing these fabulous recipes now and your stories about plantain. Just everything has been so lovely, Mylinda. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you so much for having me. And just like with Rooted Medicine Circle, my only thing is I wish it was longer. I wish this conversation was longer, and I wish Rooted Medicine Circle was longer. But I understand that you can't just do Rooted Medicine Circle forever, just one long continuous. So the next best thing is, again, access to the recordings. And so, I just thank you so much for inviting me on to talk about it. I feel like it was really, it really changes the way that you view herbs and the earth and the relationships that you build. And like, I'm just so grateful and so thankful for having been a part of it and being able to be under the tutelage of you and Emily, and being supported by Karen and Emily. Like, it's just a great community. Like, everybody should join.
Well, thank you so much, Mylinda. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening. You can download your illustrated recipe card from today's episode. Just head to herbswithrosaliePodcast.com or check out the show notes for a link. And if you're not already subscribed, I'd love to have you as part of this herbal community so I can deliver even more herbal goodies your way. This podcast is made possible in part by our awesome students. This week's student spotlight is on Sanjaya Singleton in Mississippi. Sanjaya joined Rooted Medicine Circle in 2025 and brought deep care and intention to both the medicine making and naturalist practices. Over the years, she shared how her relationship with plants transformed. She went from believing she did not have a green thumb to wanting to be surrounded by green life everywhere. And her capstone project, Where Green Still Grows, beautifully explored the surprising harmony between wild nature and an urban golf course, really showing how Rooted Medicine Circle opened her eyes to the beauty that was already around her. To honor her contributions, Mountain Rose Herbs is sending Sanjaya a $50 gift certificate to stock up on their incredible selection of organically and sustainably sourced herbal supplies. Thank you so much to Mountain Rose Herbs for supporting our amazing students. And if you'd like to study with me and live out your dreams of being an herbalist, you can check out my foundational courses at herbswithrosalee.com. Okay, you've made it to the very end of the show, which means you get a gold star and this herbal tidbit. Well, you'll often hear that turmeric has to be taken with black pepper, and pairing turmeric with black pepper or other pungent herbs like ginger can be absolutely a wonderful choice. But this strict advice mostly comes from research on isolated curcumin, especially thinking about curcumin combined with another extract made from black pepper. So curcumin supplements have their place. I'm not opposed to them, but they're not the same thing as working with whole turmeric. Whole turmeric behaves differently. When you use the whole root or rhizome, particularly as food, it's already bioavailable in ways that isolated curcuminoid extracts simply aren't. Traditional cultures didn't pair turmeric with fats and warming spices because turmeric was ineffective on its own, but because those combinations support digestion, enjoyment, and long-term sustainable use. It's a great reminder that whole plants offer a level of complexity and balance that isolated constituents simply can't replicate, and that different forms of a plant can serve different purposes. Thanks for joining me in this episode. I'll see you next time.